right, welcome to Hair Metal Revolution. I'm so happy that you guys are here. Um, I don't know if this is exciting news for you guys or not, but I am officially like retired from my last job. So I'm going to be doing like 2 live shows a week on Hair Metal Revolution. I don't know if it's going to be Wednesday's always going to be the day. I don't know if it's going to be on a Monday or a Friday. See, I like doing live show people. I'm not that kind of a guy who likes to, record it, then recut it, add this, add that, because it's not raw. It's not real. I'd like to be interactive with you guys. We have a subject, we have a topic, but where it goes depends on us. That's what I love. So, welcome to a live show. I'm excited for you guys all to be here. Now, remember, we all love music. All of us loves music. So, the title, British versus American rock, hard rock bands, who rocks harder? Now, that's an opinion that's up to you. I am not forcing anybody to say, oh, British rock is technically better than American rock. We all love music. We love it all. But this is just for fun. One day somebody went up to me and go, hey, Gypsy Road, if you can only have one kind of music, American rock bands or British rock bands. And I'm like, that's interesting. Okay, that's interesting. If you only could choose one, what will it be? And why? It's kind of a cool, kind of a topic. If you can only choose one. Thank God we don't. Thank God we can like both both music from all around the world. I think of my boys, AC/DC from Australia, except for Brian Johnson is from Europe. Beyond that, we love music that's around the world. But in this argument, it's British versus American. And I'm going to give you my opinion if I had to choose one. Before we get there, yesterday was Veterans Day. Myself is a veteran. My whole family was in the military. My one brother was in the Navy. Another brother was in the Army. My father was in the Air Force. I was in the Coast Guard. Cousins in the Marines. We have every branch of service in our family. So, I'm wearing my Coast Guard in celebration yesterday. So if you're a veteran, thank you for your service, my friends. I appreciate all of you. Okay. Now, British rock versus American rock. It's an interesting... if you actually kind of study British musicians versus American musicians, now I'm talking about percentages. This is not every musician out there. Even my wife, who when she was in college, she took a music class on world music. So you know what I mean? On world music. So it's interesting what they kind of learn percentage-wise with British versus American. British are more in tune with the instruments. They study more versus America. On average, they actually study more. That's why they say that British are the better actors, because they go to school more. That American is more raw. It's more raw. So, when you start thinking about it in that way, is it true? What I mean is they know more about the books. They know the right tunes. They know how to read notes. So if you take 2 examples, I'm just doing this as an example, people. If you look at Led Zeppelin, Jimmy Page, he's like a technical doctor on a guitar. He knows how to read every single note. He knows every single tone. He knows how to dissect anything there is about the guitar, mixing in his studio, right? He knows it all, right? So he's really in tune on how the music he creates, Jimmy Page, right? You go to America's side. Let's use Eddie Van Halen. Eddie Van Halen tells you he doesn't read books. He doesn't care to read notes. He wants the music to be raw from him. He listens for the sound. He doesn't, when he tones, he's not toning it exactly for the letter D, E, F, G, H, I, O. He's just tuning it till he gets the sound that he likes. So there's a lot of difference between. They're both great. They both should be, statues everywhere. Jimmy Page and Eddie Van Halen. But they're both different. Jimmy studied music. Eddie grew up on music, but he didn't care for the books. He didn't care. So it's gonna be an interesting topic. Some people that are here right now in the chat, that's why I do these live shows, because I want to be interactive. We got Danny Stanton from South Carolina, one of the greatest guys in the world. If you guys got any questions about comic books or anything like that, Danny Stanton's your man. All right, we got Imara. Greetings from Italy. Big metalhead since I was 11 years old. I love 80s glam rock the most, but I love rock in general. Apart for trash metal, the only exception are Megadeth. Okay. I'm not picky about what I listen to. I'm more picky who I listen to. And again, but the biggest selling metal bands of all time is 4 guys from New York, Kiss. Again, I'm not saying British is better than American. American is better than British, because that's up to you, what you like. Right? So, to start this off, I'm going to be honest with you guys on my stuff. So, I'm going to hit share screen. And, these are some of the British rock bands. And we're going to use the 70s and 80s. We're not going to go in the 90s. We're not going to go in the 2000s. We're going to just use mostly the 70s and 80s, because that's the era that most of us grew up in. My music taste grew up more in the 80s versus the 70s. But if you look at the big British bands from the 70s and 80s, you have Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, Black Sabbath, you have Queen, you have The Who, Status Quo, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Saxon, Def Leppard, Motorhead, Diamond Head. So, you have a lot of bands there. If you want to add Sex Pistols in there, they're a famous British punk band, which only really had one album, but regardless, so right there, Led Zeppelin, a band that's pure musicians that knows how to play. Deep Purple had that deep down blues. Black Sabbath from Ozzy Osbourne, the great Ozzy Osbourne. I even liked it when they had Dio in the band. So I liked all Black Sabbath. Queen is Queen. The Who, of course, Iron Maiden. Judas Priest. Judas Priest, you could say, kind of came from the 70s, maybe the later 70s. But I guess Judas Priest, most of the popularity came from the 80s. But I always consider Judas Priest kind of 70s and 80s. Saxon, Def Leppard, which had their own album they created that came out in 79, but Def Leppard in the 80s, Motorhead, and Diamond Heat. So those are some of the major one. And there's a lot. And we don't have time to talk about every single British band out there. So we're going to use some of this. And guys, again, I'm going to be absolutely 100% honest with you all. And I'm going to use this for myself to get to my answer of who would I choose. If I had to choose. That's okay. So I was born in 1973. So my musical taste is more 80s versus the 70s. With 70s music, I had to go back to the 70s. Okay? And listen to it. So when I say, we all know Led Zeppelin is a great band. For a lot of people, Led Zeppelin is everything to them. Led Zeppelin, for me, was not everything to me. For me, they weren't great. They were just a good band. I'm sorry if that offends a lot of you, but I liked Led Zeppelin, but I was never like, oh, I got to have this Led Zeppelin album. I got to go buy this. I liked them. I respect their talents, but I was never really a Led Zeppelin fan. Liked them, respect them. And by the time I was into music in the 80s, Led Zeppelin wasn't even touring. Deep Purple, another band that I respect, but I was never really into Deep Purple, right? Great blues band, lot of great singers, even, David Coverdale from Whitesnake played in, Deep Purple before and all that. So the one of the bands that I did love going back to listen to, probably the most out of all the British band from the 70s, Black Sabbath. I went back and listened to Black Sabbath with Ozzy. I mean, every album in the 70s with Black Sabbath were great. So out of the 70s, you know, I like Black Sabbath the most out of all of them. Queen was Queen. I was never really a huge Queen fan. Respected them, you know. But I've never had a tour shirt of Queen. I never bought a Queen album. I know their songs. You know, if I had an album, I'll probably buy the greatest hits. I'm sorry, it just, Queen is Queen. The Who, the Who's great, but I was never like a Who fan. Again, I like them. So from the 70s, Black Sabbath was the band that I listened to the most from the British. Right? Iron Maiden. What can you say for Iron Maiden? Love Iron Maiden. Love them. 80s makes sense. Judas Priest, love them. Love Judas Priest. Love Judas Priest. Def Leppard. I mean, Def Leppard's just great. Def Leppard, like Queen, probably had one of the best all-around vocals from all the band members. Just like Queen, every person in that band and Def Leppard could sing, which helped make that full sound, kind of like Queen. So, well, okay. Joe wrote, I like both British and English bands. No comparison with American bands. Totally love it. Still do today. Again, we all love both, Joe. We all love both. But we're just having fun and pretending that no matter what, for whatever reason, they're going to, I don't know, the world, our government's going to say, you can only listen to American bands. All British is cut off. Or all 70, or we had a vote on it, right? You had a vote. The government says you only listen to either British or American for whatever reason. So we're playing in that kind of a world of a game. So and Roger Blair, another good friend of mine. I'm not picky about what I listen to, more picky who I listen to. Okay, so I always love Deep Purple and Rainbow. Rainbow's another good British band. Rainbow's interesting because Rainbow was started with, Richard Black, from Deep Purple, but Rainbow's lead singer, the original lead singer's Dio, was an American. So I'm Rick James. Listen, this is not about who cares who you listen to. We're having fun. This is a community coming together, just talking about music. These are just topics to get us together. We're not saying one has to be better than the other. We're just pretending if you had to pick one, and we're going over some of these bands. All right? So it's not about who cares. It's about we all care about music. That's why we're here. So I get why you're thinking that, but remember, we're all music lovers. So is Rainbow a totally British band when your lead singer Dio's from Cortland, New York, where my wife's from? I was 7 when my mom took me to see Black Sabbath for the first time at Charleston, South Carolina. She took their picture for the newspaper. We got in for free. Oh, man. English bands that I love. Deep Purple, Def Leppard, The Sweet. Yeah, looking at the list, out of all these British bands, I mean, for myself, Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, Def Leppard from here on this list, Iron Maiden are probably my favorite British bands that's on this list. Okay, so let's look over at the 80s. All right, let's go look at the ladies. Okay, so here, let's remove this. Let me see here. Let's go over share screen. Let's look at some of the 80s here. All right. So when you look at the 70s, You got Aerosmith, Van Halen, Kiss, ZZ Top, Blue Oyster Cult, Cheap Trick, the Ramones. You know, what can you say? Listen, no offense to Led Zeppelin. I would say, Aerosmith is probably the earliest of these bands, more, closer to the alignment of Led Zeppelin. I'm more Aerosmith than Led Zeppelin any day of the week. Van Halen came out in 1978. I always considered Van Halen technically more towards 80s, even though their Diamond album debut came out in 78. But I always kind of category them more in the 80s. Fair or not fair, I do. But Kiss, I mean, what can you say about Kiss? Four guys from New York, right? Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons, right? They gave up a record contract that they had because they didn't like the direction of what the music they were doing. I forgot the name of their other band, and they left because they wanted to create the music that they wanted to create. And then they got the great Peter Criss and the one and only Ace Frehley. Right? My heart goes out to Ace Frehley. I wish the man is still with us. Freak accident in his own studio. Ace Frehley is one of a kind. But what can you say about Kiss? There are so many bands that gets knocked down, right? They do. They get knocked down. I mean, even Aerosmith almost self-destruct because of all the drugs in the band. But like Aerosmith and Kiss, they never gave up. They never gave up. They stayed there. They stay there. They stay there. And they both had successful careers. They never gave up. When Kiss started doing the disco shit, when they kind of got away from the rock roots and they realized what they did, even though they damaged in that early 80s and stuff, they said, you know what, we're going to make a change. And it worked out. So many things about Kiss that you have to admire. You do. You have to admire. Kiss never gave up. Even when the majority of the world gave up on Kiss, they never gave up. They stuck with it. And the Kiss Army stuck with them. Kiss is such a fascinating story. They truly are a fascinating story. ZZ Top from Texas. What can you say? Blue Oyster Cult, Cheap Trick, the Ramones. The British say, the British has their Sex Pistols, right? I always say, yeah, they got their Sex Pistols, but in America, we got the Ramones. And the difference between the Ramones and the Sex Pistols, they made one album. The Ramones made a lot of albums. They were able to stay together, even though they had disagreements. So I always had a respect for the Ramones versus Sex Pistols. All right. So have you ever heard of a metal band, Wishbone Ash? They opened for Sabbath in 1972. On a U.S. tour, they sounded like Judas Priest before Priest existed. Then they vanished. I could have sworn I heard the name Wishbone. I don't know if I exactly heard it as Wishbone Ash. But, yeah, a lot of bands did vanish. It didn't go in the 80s, right? Guns N' Roses, Mötley Crüe, Rat, Twisted Sister, Poison. I mean, you can put early Dokken on there. Early Dokken. I mean, there's so many bands you could put from the 80s rock. I don't want to say, Guns N' Roses came out like in 87. Tesla. I mean, there's so many great American bands. There's every one of these bands I liked. I love every one of them. And I'm not just saying this just to say this, people, but if I had to choose one, I'm going to choose American bands over British. British might be technically the finest musicians that are out there, but American bands, they're just raw. They're just like real. They're really gonna experiment with different sounds. They're just something. Like early Motley. Too Fast for Love, Shout Out the Devil, just pure raw. Rat, Out of the Cellar, Invasion of Your Privacy, Rod, Dawkins. Twisted Sister, who doesn't get a lot of love for whatever reason. I don't understand that. Twisted Sister is a pure American fucking band that deserves way more respect than they have gotten. I just love I love more American bands than I do British. It's kind of weird, right? Def Leppard's British. They're British. But I don't know why I always consider Def Leppard like more American than British. Is that weird? Is that me? I have heard, Def Leppard was more popular in America than they're back home because a lot of people, if I read it correctly, in Britain, thought that Def Leppard was an American band. So they got more of that. So again, this is for fun. I'm not saying one has to be better than the other. British music wins the 70s, no doubt, but US blew the world away in the 80s. But did they, Danny? Did they? Okay, I get it. They had the big bangers, right? They had the Queen. They have Led Zeppelin, right? The Who. They had the big bangers. But, Aerosmith was fucking badass. Kiss was badass. Kiss got a lot of bands. A lot of people to become bands because of them. So I know CCR was on the list, but CCR, Creedence Clearwater Revival, holy shit, right? They're from the 70s. They were a fucking badass band, right? We got, Johnny Cash, go in the country world, Johnny Cash, we have the Elvis in the world. I know, like going back to the 60s stuff, I know a lot of people love the Beatles and all those bands. I mean, listen, I was born in 1973, so I was mostly like rock, but I was never. I respect those bands, but I was never into the Who. I never cared to really buy every single Led Zeppelin album. The only band again was Black Sabbath. That's the one I bought their albums, but even though they had the bigger, probably sellers from the British part in the 70s, but I would still take the American 70s over the 80s because I love Aerosmith. I love Kiss. Cheap Trick. And Cheap Trick was a little bit, they're mid 70s up to the 80s. Of course Van Halen came out 78. Just put a kick in the ass of fucking rock and roll. ZZ Top was great. So, British had the bigger sellers, but I don't know, man. For my taste, I'm pure American on the 70s too. Even though I love all music, but when I had to break it down of all the bands from the 70s from both genre planet, I gotta go American. AC/DC is interesting, right? Because they're not from British, but they're Australia. We love freaking some AC/DC, but it's all music, guys. It's all fun. Hi, you should listen to a Sweden band called Danger. They formed 2000. They aren't famous I think they sound like Mötley Crüe. I loved them, but with the first singer, Danger. I have to look that up. I got to make sure I type in just the word danger because we don't want to mistake that danger with the late 80s, 90s danger, which, you know, you know, that's that's when music that's when music got too formulated, and where 80s in the late 80s to the 90s stop stop being raw. You guys know what I'm talking about? How metal stopped being raw in the late 80s and 90s, and part of the reason why grunge took over that small period of time because they became more raw than the albums that were coming out. But that's another story. And hey, guys, we forgot one of the great 80s bands, Metallica. I mean, they changed the world. Metallica, Megadeth, great. And of course, we know Iron Maiden on the British side changed the world themselves. So, Iron Maiden, when they got Bruce Dickinson on the third album and above, is all that. So, both genres of music are great, are fantastic, and all that. So, let me see here. Give me a second. I want to do something here. Let me see if I could do this correctly. Hold on. I'm trying to see if I go to here, membership gifting. I thought send memberships to the channel. Memberships and quickly. Luckily, we're supposed to get 1 month. Okay, so how do I want to send? I thought I could send people free memberships for in the month, and it seemed like I could never do that. I thought I could. I thought I was able. Let me see here. If I press this, oh, here we go. Okay, let's start a poll. Okay, let's start a poll. I'm gonna type in American, British. If you can only choose one music from either British or American, who would you choose? Give me 1 second here, guys. Give me just 1 second. Let me just get this here. I'm going to type this in, and we're going to do a vote. Again, this is raw. I love live chat. I love live because I want everything to be raw. All right, here we go. All right. Start pool. Okay, if you British American origin, hold on a second. I don't know. I had the title too long. It won't let me do a long title. Okay, here we go. Start pool. Here we go. British or American origins. Which would you choose? And again, guys, there's no right or wrong in this answer. There's no right or wrong. It's for fun. Just pretend the government is saying you can only choose from what country, British or American. Who would you choose? So, all right. Let's check out the voting preference. All right, here we go. Here we go. Let me go here. I wish I can get that poll up. StreamYard won't. Okay. All right, so far we got 1 vote for American. Come on, people. Come on, people. Put some votes in. You don't see a poll? It's there. I see no poll. You don't see one? I put it on premium. Or do I have to do it through do you still not see a poll? Because I created it on the thing. Ah. I wonder why. Nope. I see nothing. How come I see it? You guys don't see it. Oh man. Is there another way? That is strange. How come you guys don't see it? And that's weird. That is strange. Does anyone else see? No, I don't understand. I'm on YouTube side and I see it for myself, but why can't nobody else see it? Well, maybe banners. Let's see here, notes, private chat. All right, let's just do this. The people who are here in the comments. Let's just break it down. Make it simple. In the comments, put in you prefer. If you had to choose one, write American or British in the comments. I apologize. Yeah, it's public. It says it's public. It says it's public. That is, I don't know why. But just write it in the comments. We'll just do that. Let me see here. New layout, manage. Leave studio. Hello, how are we doing today, sir? Well, Jacob Stutter, we're doing great. How are you doing today? Is just some weird things. I'm putting up a poll. Nobody can see it, and I don't know why. It's just weird, but doesn't matter. So, all right, guys. So if we do a live show this Friday, what topic should we cover? And then like this, these are just topics. These aren't like you have to choose one because you have to. We're just having fun to have a way to have a conversation. So if we do a live show this Friday, what's a conversation you guys want to have? Do you want to talk about a certain band, the rise or fall? Or is there a certain type of music genre you guys want to hit? So, again, these live shows, I don't like to do pre-recordings anymore. I don't like pre-recordings. Get them cut up. It's fake. It's not, to me, it's fake. I like doing this. It's raw. It's real. It's myself and you guys talking to each other. This is how music channels should be. It should be live where you guys yourself are involved. So I appreciate and love every single one of you guys that are here. Love you all. So again, I'm going to do a live show this Friday. I'll think of a topic. You can email me at hairmetalrevolution@gmail.com. I'll type it in here. hairmetalrevolution@gmail.com. Give me a topic. If there's a topic you guys want to hit, or if there's questions you guys want to hit, let's do it. So, all right. So beyond that, guys, I love you all. I'm happy, happy to hear. Again, we're going to be doing 2 live shows a week. I want all of you guys to come back. This channel is about having fun. Topics are just topics, right? Topics are just topics. We love all music, but it's a reason to get us all here together to enjoy the music that we love. Because we should never, ever have to apologize to anyone for the music that you love. You love the 70s and 80s? Hang your head high. Be proud. Because I'm proud. So we're taking the music back and giving it the respect that it deserves. Anybody who knows me knows that's my saying. Taking the music back and giving it the respect that it deserves. I love you all. And I'll see you guys this Friday live. Talk to you later.